Al?
I'd like to see that the public had an input on how the decision was gonna be made. That's all. When it goes on the ballot, that the public would have some kind of a discussion, whether there's a committee or a special meeting or whatever.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Jean?
Jean Hodge, I would like to just share some reasons for term limits that someone else has come up with. Just 10 easy bullet points, or no, less than 10. To replace the old leaders with new leaders who may bring to the board new ideas, procedures, and influences. The political machines of incumbents make it difficult to remove them from office with their influences over the local media contracts, redistricting power, and the local voting infrastructures that they have created. Politicians are less likely to be focused on their special interest for their own personal gain and for their friends' gain. It also helps prevent the good old boys system and big money campaign contributions usually direct their efforts at those in power, making it difficult for a new candidate to get off the ground. Another reason for term limits is the lack of term limits leads to a system of seniority, meaning those who have spent most of the time in office gain more power in committees, procedures, etc. Consequently, politicians focus on staying in office. The politicians that stay in office don't receive equal power. There is less of a chance for corruption of government officials if time in office is limited. New politicians are less likely to have the knowledge to exploit the system for personal gain and are more skeptical of lobbyists and special interests. And the last reason, politicians in their last term of office are more likely to ignore politics and media criticism to target what's best for the country, and they can work to establish tangible accomplishments that will build their own legacy. So I tend to agree with you. I know that there's both sides of the fence. But I think that the power of incumbency and the relationships that are built over time is greater than the will of the people.
Harry Reid's a perfect example of that.
Dianne Feinstein, Barbara Boxer, Nancy Pelosi.
Chairman, just so everybody knows, since we're having a discussion, it only, per the government code statutorily, can only apply prospectively.
Right.
Okay, just want to make sure that's out.
Yeah, basically, whatever the board does will have no effect on any current board members.
Well, it shall only apply prospectively only and shall not become operative unless it is submitted to the electors of the county at a regularly scheduled election. So at that point, when it's elected, then it goes forward.
Right.
So if you've already served 10 terms, you can still serve 2 more, or
Right.
3
Right.
more, or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. And how would that affect then, so any board members who were to be voted in June, it wouldn't affect them either?
No, because
Right.
no,
The next
because
election.
Yeah.
it can only go after the
Very good.
voters have
Yeah.
approved it.
Basically, realizing that it doesn't have that effect, I believe, it's sort of leaving it up to the voters to set the groundwork for the future, what they see.
So what it would require is probably, the way we would do this, is have an ordinance from you all, if you agreed on that, putting that on the ballot.
Okay, thank you.
And I've got templates for that. So the other avenue is for the voters to do it through an initiative with signatures. So that, just so you know that there is 2 options there.
Well, as a candidate, and have been involved here for a while now, so just so you know, my opinion is I think there needs to be term limits. I'm not running off for office as a career. I'm coming
Can
here
you
trying.
just state your name?
I'm sorry, Chuck Downs from Lassen County, or
Okay.
Janesville. Sorry. As a candidate, I think that it needs to be a short term, either 2 terms or whatever, because I think there's a good exchange of ideas and stuff. And it sounds like everybody on the board here so far has spoke is agree with that. Nothing against, the gentleman that's been on the board for a long period of time, but I'm just saying from this point on, though, I think it's a good thing. And I think Gene brings up some good points as well. So just as a candidate, I wanted to make that on the record that that's my belief. So, guys, thanks for the time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to talk on this subject? Okay, so we'll bring it back.
I guess I can say something. I mean, I'm not for it or against it. I mean, what would this cost us if we did decide to put this on the list?
Well, we already have an election going, so it's not gonna be a big cost, and it's a cost that's absorbed by the county. I mean, it has to go on a regularly scheduled election, which we have this year.
And they could apportion $8,000 to $10,000 of that cost would go, each ballot item costs X amount. So whether it's a supervisor election itself, there's a cost associated with it. But if it's by itself, then it becomes very expensive.
Exactly.
Required in general, or, like if-
Regularly scheduled election.
so it has to be at a regularly scheduled election.
I mean, my personal thing, I would like, my input of one of 5 board members is that, we put a ordinance, to limit to 3 4-year terms. I say 3, some of the counties have done 2, others have done 3. We're a relatively, small county. It's not like we have a pool of hundreds of thousands of people to draw from. Is why I would, like to see 3 4-year terms. And there is, the experience is invaluable. It brings a lot. Definitely, if there was turnover every election, I don't think that's good either. But as I said, I don't also think it's good if, as I said when I got here, was, over 80 years of service on the board. I don't think that's good. I think somewhere in between is good. So that's my take on it. And so my personal choice would be 3 4-year terms. So maybe we have some discussion on that, to give some direction. Bob, what do you have any feelings?
No, it's, okay, I think either way, and 3 terms, 3 4-year terms, 2 terms either way. I'm pretty open to whatever you guys decide. I don't have a strong feeling either way.
I think the board turnover thing is kind of problematic. You lose a lot of experience, and so that 3 4-year terms is good for me.
Jim, do you have anything to contribute?
I'm not sure why we didn't do this 30 years ago. Then I wouldn't be sitting here for 40 years, wasting my time. First of all, I don't, as a concept, I don't support and embrace term limits as being a smart action. But I think I'm not afraid about putting the question to the ballot to the voters. If they want to limit their power, they have the right to do that. I have no qualms about, that opportunity. It's no reflection. I mean, I'm the only person in the room that has run for supervisor 10 times, which is insane, if you think about it.
I agree.
And I realize that my critics, it just torqued them that somebody could actually do that. But, from a personal perspective, in terms of use of your time and stuff, I mean, when I first ran for office 40 years ago, the draft had ended and the Vietnam War was winding down, and I wanted to serve my community, so I thought, running for city council, be a way to put in. If I would have thought that I was going to spend 40 years doing the things that I've been involved in over the last 40 years, I think maybe a tour of duty in Vietnam might have been a little bit more attractive. But when you put it in those kind of perspectives from a personal point of view, I believe in voter-imposed term limits. I mean, every election we have means something. I was elected to 2 terms to the board. I was defeated my 3rd time. I came back and ran that 4th time. It was a hard-fought election then. I had another hard-fought election the 5th time I ran. The 6th time was a little bit easier. I've only run unopposed twice in that 40 years. My 2nd term and will probably be about the 6th term or whatever it is. So in terms of having an easy buy, so this idea that being an incumbent is this onerous power that Sweet Jean alludes to in her presentation, as far as I'm concerned, is BS. Every time you put your name on the line to be considered. You open your life to all kinds of intrusions from everybody and anybody who wants to come to the podium and whip you as an employer to an employee. I've gone out numerous times to try to get, I think, good people to run for office, whether it's for supervisor or for any other office. And the biggest single reason why people don't want to do that is the abuse that they have to put up with or take in order to run for a public office. And each and every one of you have been through that mill. So to me, I think that the fact that I've survived and succeeded, and some people are going to want to support this because, they can't beat me in an election, so if nothing else, I'll just fix it so I can't run again. That's fine with me because I don't see myself running a whole lot more in terms of contributing to this community. I'm proud of the record I have. I'm proud of the fact that the voters, had the audacity, to support me and to encourage me and to continue to back me at the elections. Not only just for the 10 times I've run for supervisor, but the time I ran for city council, the time I ran for the college board, the time I ran for the state assembly. So I've been richly blessed in that respect. And to me, if they want to eliminate their choice, that's their business. Okay, but as long as they have a choice, I was willing to make that as an offer. And I put my life into serving the public, but I also maintain and operate a business. I realize some people, want to disparage that, and that's fine. They really don't know what they're talking about when they talk about my private business. So I've worked hard both in the private world as well as in the public sector to try to make the community a better place. And I think that's what public service is about. The counties that are referenced there are all large urban counties where it takes millions to run for those offices. And I think that there are hierarchies and bureaucracies that are created. But Kip O'Neill said it best, all politics is local. And that's what I've enjoyed about Lassen County and Susanville. And in terms of running for office, the numerous times that I have, I've enjoyed that one-on-one with my constituency. I'm vying for a different office this year. And one of the biggest things I get back from folks that I talk to, my support group is, well, we don't want you to leave the board. We need to keep you there on the board. Okay, so that kind of runs against the grain of the idea, well, let's term limit so we can clean those people out and bring in new people. So somewhere along the lines, we'll see what the reconciliation is about. Whether I choose to stay or choose to leave, or they choose to keep me or choose to have me leave, as they did in 1984. So I've experienced firsthand what term limits, voter-imposed term limits means. And I have profound respect for the voter in terms of making that decision. And I'm not interested in second-guessing them. But if they want to limit their choice and their ability to decide who they want to represent them, then that's their business. And I'm not going to tell them one way or the other. Personally, I would like to have all the choices. And if they choose to keep somebody there for 15 terms, that's their business, not mine.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, I think, Jim, you've obviously misunderstood what our action will do, because if this did go and pass, you'd be free to run for another 10 terms.
No, I would not. I would only be, if it's 2 or 3 terms,
No.
only 2 or 3 more terms. I mean, I don't see myself.
You're
Yeah.
not correct.
Yeah.
Can you speak?
No, if this is passed by, in the election, then starting with that, then anybody will be limited
To 2 or 3 terms?
to that.
Right.
Okay.
that, yeah.
And,
But the county starts at that point.
I thought you said it didn't affect.
No, it
Yeah.
doesn't count your time now.
I see.
The
The
county
people who
starts at
were
that
elected in June would not have that term count against them. But when they ran for re-election 4 years later, then that clock starts running. There's 58 counties in California, and each county has 5 supervisors. So at any given time, San Francisco has an odd mix with a city county, so they have 11. But there's only 296 supervisors at any one time seated on a board of supervisors in the whole state. It's a very small group when you think about the 38 million people that we have in our state in terms of taking care of day-to-day business. And right now, regardless of this discussion and whatever action and whatever vote the voters would take, given the choice of what they want. I'm already there. I'm already in the top 5 longest serving supervisors in the history of the state. And with term limits being imposed around the state, if that's what the voters decide to do, very few people are going to have the opportunity that I've had. And in some respects, that makes me kind of sad, because I think it is an interesting experience. But at the same time, there's very few people that will, if you look at the election cycles that take place, it's rare for anybody to serve more than 2 terms, 2 or 3 terms on a board, because they're generally either get up and walk away, or they're defeated. And that's, so serving beyond 2 or 3 terms is not something that happens very often anymore in local government, in county government around the state. So if you want to go ahead and put a cap on it, you're going to maybe affect maybe 5% of the people who at some point in time would serve in this office. In the 150 years that our county's been in existence, there's only been like 102 people who have served on the Board of Supervisors. And I tell you, during the early part of the 1900s, the 1800s, we saw a lot of